Hello again. I'd like to share a little bit about my experience with inconsummation. And I'd like to do that by sharing with you a true story that happened just a few months ago here in 2020, as a matter of fact, in the month of June. Some of you may have read my book, Journey to the Promised Land, in which I talked about a relationship, a friendship that I formed with a homeless man and his dog. Well, it turns out the man isn't homeless anymore. And his dog, in the book, her name is Betty and his name is Buck, but that's not their real names. The two of them have now found a home, and they've had a home for the last 4 years. My friend Buck was rather neglectful, I thought, of his dog toward the end of her life. His real name is Huey, and her real name is Gladys. Back in February, I could see that she was really aging, and I talked to him about possibly putting her down, and he didn't want to do that. And I felt hopeless and helpless about her situation. I didn't know what else to do. As much as I tried to talk with him gently about it, he was adamant, no, he did not want to put her down. And I understand all the reasons for that. But it was really hard for me. Well, that was in February. And later in June, I visited the two of them again. And this time I could see that Gladys was really ailing. She was very old, probably 13 or 14, and really needed to go to the Rainbow Bridge. And so as I was feeling very distraught about it, the thought came to me, you know, it's okay to tell her that she can just go. It's okay to let her be in charge and take the risk of her being in charge of her future. And so on a bright sunny morning in Taos, New Mexico in June of this year, I was on my way back to Boulder, Colorado, and I stopped to see my friends with full intention that I would have a talk with Gladys. And so I told Huey that I wanted to have a talk with her, and I didn't say exactly what I wanted to talk about, but I'm pretty sure he knew on some level. And so I picked her up, and we went over to a green, shady part of the lawn. And I laid down beside her and I looked in her eyes. Now, this was a dog who was completely blind and completely deaf. And yet she looked with her blind eyes right in my eyes. And I said to her, you know, Gladys, you don't have to stay here. There are lots of friends waiting for you at Rainbow Bridge. You don't have to stay in this body. You don't have to continue to suffer. If you want to go and be with your friends and be out of this body, it's really fine. You don't have to take care of Huey. You don't have to take care of me. You don't have to take care of anyone. You're free to go. And thank you so much for what you've done for all of us, what you've given Huey, what you've given me. You've made a difference in so many people's lives. You were the light that surrounded Huey all those years when he was homeless. And we just so deeply appreciate who you've been. And now we bless you. I bless you to move on. And so I just laid there on the ground with Gladys for maybe 10 minutes, stroking her and giving her all of this love and permission. I got up, and Gladys, who really couldn't see anything, just continued to follow me. And Huey actually said to me, "Look at her follow you." As I think about it now, I feel very sad because she was probably thinking, well, this woman just told me about the Rainbow Bridge and she's not taking me there. And she said I could go, and why is she leaving me? And after I left their place, as I was on the road, I called a dear friend who's an animal rescuer, a dog handler. And I told her what I had done. And she said, well, in my experience, that sort of thing takes effect pretty quickly. She said, I'd be surprised if she weren't gone by the end of the day. And my heart was breaking as I made the drive that next 3 or 4 hours back to Boulder. I cried and cried and cried. And it wasn't just grief. There was this incredible magic, this incredible spiritual experience that I felt, this communication between myself and Gladys. And so when I got home, I was tired and I was exhausted, and I could feel that, the tears had stained my face. And so I took a shower, and I did a lot of crying as the water ran over me. And then after I got out of the shower, I thought, well, I better connect with Huey and see how she's doing. And I went in and I logged into Facebook, and I saw that he had sent me a message, and he said, call me immediately. So I called him by video call, and there was Gladys laying in her bed, panting and breathing very heavily and unconscious. He said that she had a couple of hours earlier gone over and just laid in the sun. It was a very hot day. And that he saw her laying there panting and breathing, and took her back to his place and put her in cold water, but she still didn't become conscious. And she just laid there in her bed, panting and breathing. And so we watched her together, and the panting and breathing increased. And it was very obvious that she was dying. And finally she did. I was sobbing. My friend was sobbing. And it was, again, a very mystical, spiritual experience to watch her go. And to know that I had a part in that. To know that for all her blindness and deafness, the communication worked. And it was as if, that day and later that evening, I was just absolutely elevated. I was spiritually high because I had been through this incredibly mystical experience that this animal had taken me through. I had escorted her to the Rainbow Bridge. And I could feel this incredible enthusiasm and elevation is the word I keep coming back to. There was a part of me that really wanted to hold on to that. And even through my tears and my grief, it was sweet and it was holy and it was mystical. And even the next day, I wanted to hold on. I didn't want to leave that experience that was so sweet and so profound. And yet, even before I had become familiar with, the part of the lesson that we're teaching here on Inconsummation, something in me knew that I couldn't hang on. And that if I hung on, I would actually miss the lesson. I would miss the profound teaching of this experience. And so, regrettably, I just allowed myself to let it go, to let it be like water flowing and see where it would take me in that river of grief. So I did. I did gradually over time let go of that experience. I'll never, ever forget it. And, I have in my living room a huge photo of Gladys that I took a few years ago. There she is, looking at me as I sit in my favorite chair. But I didn't hang on. And since that time, I've had a lot of awarenesses about who she was in my life, who she was to a lot of people, and profound gratitude that I could have an experience like that. So I would just say with great empathy, I know how tempting it is to want to hold on to a mystical experience. And yet, the mystical experience isn't complete until we have really, really let it go.